This is a Classic Blues and R&B podcast.
Our guest here on Classic Blues and R&B is Mr. Bill McFarland of the Chicago Horns on Classic Blues and R&B.
At Playboy Towers downtown. At that time, it was down there on, I think it was Oak Street, I think it was.
Yeah.
Just south of Michigan.
Yeah, that's where it was.
Yeah, and we played in the ballroom there on the first floor. And we worked there for about 8 or 9 months. And well, what I really want to say is when we started working there, it was about 80% whites coming in, enjoying their after-work cocktail. But the music was really jamming, you know. And as we worked there, the crowd got bigger and bigger and bigger. And after about 8 months, it was about 80. When we first started, it was about 80% white, 20% black. After about 8 or 9 months, it flipped. It was 80% black and 20% white. So you know what that meant. That was the end of that gig. But we did play at Playboy Mansion. We played at several mansions down there on State Parkway. And after a year working together, Chaka got a break to work with Rufus. So that kind of ended that group. But at that time, Leroy Hudson had produced some albums. I did about 4 or 5 albums with Leroy Hudson. And I went on the road with him, you know. We cut an album called Spirit of 76, which was a celebration of the American Bicentennial. But I think it was on 73, we did a thing called Cool Out, which was a great instrumental. So in Love, Love, Oh Love, were some of the tunes that we did with Leroy.
Yeah.
At the same time, I had done some things with Alligator Records, with Sun Seals, and this was in the early 70s, maybe about 75, 74, 5, 76. I did about 3 albums with Sun Seals, and I worked in the studio with the artists that he had on his roster, was Fenton Robinson, Sun Seals, Lonnie Brooks, Albert Collins. I did albums with all of them, Coco Taylor. And I did some things in most of the studios around town with arrangers like Sonny Saunders, who did arrangements for a variety of artists. I played on one of Dell's records, a tune called I Touched a Dream. I'm playing on that. And some of the things that I did were with Tom Washington, who's some of the artists I can't even remember, man. It's been a while, but Tom is still around doing arrangements. He's fighting a little illness right now, but from what I understand, he's recovered. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Oh, yeah, Tom Washington, right.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. He and I went to high school together.
Yeah.
We graduated together.
Speaking of some of the people from around here, are you familiar with a young man just passed with Andre Paul Wolfuck? He was the second. He was with Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I didn't know him personally, but I knew of him. See, all of the cats in the Phoenix Horns, I was close with. Don Myrick, who had a horrible fate to end his life out there in L.A., and Michael Harris, who was the trumpet player, Romley, Michael Davis, Louis Satterfield. All of those guys I had worked with and recorded with different times here in Chicago before they hooked up with Earth, Wind, and Fire as the Phoenix Horns. But I did not know Andrew Woolfolk. I guess it was because he was out there and I was here in Chicago.
Yeah, I understand he passed away, so sending our condolences out to his family.
Yes, and I also send condolences to his family. He was a great artist, man. He had some very poignant stuff that he played. Very, very challenging music too, man.
Yeah.
At that time, it wasn't easy.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Bill. Now, you're coming out of Iowa, so how old were you when you moved to Chicago?
I was about 4, I guess.
Oh, okay. So you didn't get a chance to.
No, maybe about 5.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
it seemed like I went to kindergarten in Iowa, and then I came here.
That's quite of a cultural shock, coming from an area where there were not many American blacks. Over here, where you found quite a few. Yeah. Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It really was. I mean, because we were in a situation where right down the street there would be whites, or some cases not far from where we were.
Right.
And Des Moines it wasn't highly integrated. I mean, I guess it was segregated because I didn't get to stay there long enough to find out a lot of things, but I did experience a situation in kindergarten in Iowa. When I was a kid, I remember they used to have jeans, blue jeans, that had buttons on them for the crotch.
Right.
And this particular pair of jeans that I had, obviously, the buttons were a little bigger. I just couldn't get the buttons to work with the buttonhole. So we were sitting in a circle in the kindergarten class, and obviously I wasn't even thinking about it because what do I know about my crotch being open? I'm a kindergartner. So the teacher looks down at me and says, Orville McFarland, that's my name, my birth name. You're going to stand in the corner until you learn to button your pants. So, I mean, she had no idea that I had a problem getting the damn buttonhole to fit the button,
Now, what
that struck me as a child. I felt very self-conscious standing in the corner, feeling that everybody was looking at me, maybe kind of paranoid. But I outgrew it, but it's something that has stuck with me since I was a child.
Yeah. Now, what you say your name is? I don't think I caught it correctly.
Okay. My birth name is Orville McFarland.
Okay, Orville. Okay.
Yeah, and but see, here's the thing. I was named after my uncle.
Okay.
Okay, and my grandmother, she couldn't say when they were kids. She couldn't say Orville. She said Bill.
Yeah.
So he picked up the nickname Bill.
Okay, yeah.
So I picked up the nickname Bill.
Yeah.
It's strange, but that's how it happened.
Right, that makes sense. Now, were your people from out in that part, your Kansas and those parts of the country, or where were your grandmother and father from?
Well, my grandmother and grandfather, they were from Arkansas and Alabama, and they migrated up to Iowa. My great-grandfather was a miner in Kansas, and after slavery, and they migrated on up from Iowa to Chicago, all of them, all of us,
Yeah. I have a granddaughter who's going to school over there in Iowa right now, and a niece, and a great niece over there too. She's at Iowa State. My granddaughter's at Cornell over there in Iowa. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Bill, continue to talk about yourself. I had a question I wanted to ask you, and I think you answered it without me asking you that. You know some of the artists and things you played with and all that. So now, who are the Chicago? What you call it? Chicago Horns, right? What
right. Well, the Chicago Horns.
Yeah. Who are those? Who are the your group?
Well, that goes back to first before the Chicago Horns came into being, I worked with R.B. Brown, Kirk Brown, and some of the cats that I was involved with the jazz genre of music, because that's what really gravitated me to music in the first place. Was the jazz. I used to listen to Ahmed Jamal and Dizzy Gillespie and Duke Ellington's orchestra and Count Basie, because that's some of the music. Dinah Washington. Those are the records that my mom and dad had, you know.
Right.
And so that influenced me heavily. So I gravitated toward jazz. But what happened was, after getting out here, realizing that it was going to take me a while to learn my craft to be able to get into the jazz field, that I was able to work playing soul and blues and pop and rock and all that kind of stuff, And so what happened was in the 70s when I was doing some work with Sun Seals at Alligator Records. I think it was around 70, 75 or 6. We did an album called Chicago Fire. And, Bruce Eglar, who was the producer, he made some comment about something that I had put in the record, with Odell. Can you do this and do that? And then I said, what are you crying about, man? I said, you got the Chicago Fire on this album, So little did I know, he didn't change anything. We didn't change anything. But little did I know that he turned around and titled the album Chicago Fire. So the guys that recorded that with me were Hank Ford, Jerry Wilson, late Jerry Wilson, and a guy named Paul Howard. And what happened was we started doing some gigs with Otis Clay. And we called the group Chicago Horns, Chicago Fire Horns. And that was the soul version and blues version of the Chicago Horns. But after we went to Japan with Otis Clay and did a couple of live albums, and you might see that name, Chicago Horns, on there, Chicago Fire Horns. I forgot what it was. But I decided that when I put the sextet together, the jazz sextet, it will be Bill McFarland and the Chicago Horns. That happened, I guess around 1989, somewhere around there. Okay, Kenny Anderson is a trumpet player. Hank Ford is a sax player in the group, the Chicago Horns, the current group. We've been together over 30 years working, but Kenny and I met each other at the time that I was with the Southside Movement, a group called the Southside Movement. Mm-hmm. We did an album called I've Been Watching You. And I had enough of being on the road with the management that they had, so I left that group. Kenny Anderson, trumpet player in Chicago Horns, came in behind me at the time that I was leaving, he was coming in. And that's when my first contact was with him. That was back around 75 or 6. We worked on various jobs around town together, different gigs. And then in 70, it was around 76 is when I met Hank Ford at Malcolm X College. I decided to go back to school and pick up some music credits and get some more education. Hank Ford was a student there at Malcolm X. And what we did was we ended up working some of the concerts and festivals with Malcolm X, and I really liked the sound that he had. So he and I put a quintet together. We called it the McFarland Ford Quintet. And we worked together around town. We worked down on Rush Street. There was a joint called a bar called Elliot's Nest. And we worked there for about, over a year or two. I think it was from 81 to 83. And after that, I think what happened was, 83, we did another tour with Otis Clay in Japan. We did a live album over there. And that one turned out to be really a great sounding album. At the same time, Hank Ford and I, in that year, actually in 78 or 9, we also did a tour with Curtis Mayfield and Linda Clifford, Hank Ford, and there was a trumpet player named Paul Howard. Paul and I worked at the Black Ensemble Theater for the last 15 years up until this pandemic hit back in 2019. Mm-hmm. Okay, but anyway, Paul Howard on trumpet, Hank Ford and I, Hank was playing sax and I was on trombone. We toured Japan, and then we came back to Chicago sometime in that same year, 78 or 9, Curtis Mayfield had a tour he was doing. Paul wasn't able to do it. So there was a brother named Marvin Davis, trumpet player, who was a teacher at the public schools, and he's a renowned trumpet player. He's recorded on a lot of different artists' albums here in Chicago. And he's worked out at the Mill Run Theater and various places when they were active, doing shows out there at the airport around that area. Anyway, Marvin ended up doing the tour with us with Curtis Mayfield. We toured with what's her name? Runaway Love, the girl that recorded Runaway. You're a runaway love. Damn, her name escapes me now. It's been a long time. So anyway, Curtis and Linda Clifford, that was her name.
Okay, Linda Clifford, yeah.
You remember Linda Clifford, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, we toured. We did 3 tours together. After we did those tours, I had begun working some different gigs with Hank around town. Chicago, it was at the Cotton Club and several other places around town we worked at. And around 89 was when Kenny entered the group. And we were working at Andy's, the jazz club. It was a McFarland Force Quintet. What happened is I had spoken to the guy that was doing the booking at Andy's, and he had some blues artists that were coming in there. So he said, well, look, Bill, if you do this gig with these blues artists on this particular night, then I'll bring your jazz group in here. So I did the blues gig there at Andy's. I forgot who the artist was because it was just one night. And then about a week later, I started working there every Monday night. And we did that for about a year straight. And that's when Kenny entered the group. That was around 1990, 89 or 90, 89. Because we worked there, I think, almost until 90, 91 at Andy's. And Kenny Anderson joined the group. Hank Ford joined the group. I mean, Hank Ford was already there, and myself. So we had gone through various rhythm sections, different artists, different players. So what happened was after playing together, we got hooked up with a producer that I know, a guy named Buddy Monaco, Italian guy. He produces blues shows, and he does Easter and Thanksgiving parade of blues and Thanksgiving blues extravaganza. He's been doing it for about 30-some years. I've been playing them, every one of them, out on the north side, up north. Some of the well-known blues artists that he books. I can't even remember. I don't associate with them. I'm not associated with them, but I don't play with them. But we do come together and do that on that particular gig every year.
Yeah.
I only see him once a year, twice a year, so we're not like real buddies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a gig, and I'll see you later.
Yeah, we're talking. Our guest here today is Mr. Bill McFarland, the great trombonist around here in Chicago and across the country. He's a producer. He's also a arranger, etc., of music here in America. The great American music here you're listening to. Sir Henry Cheatham here is the host on this program. I want to thank you for joining us here today. And Bill, I noticed on the Leroy Hudson album, and I want to ask you another question before you get into that one. Burgess Gardner, did he ever work with the Chicago Horns?
No, Burgess never worked with the Chicago Horns, but Burgess did. I did do some things with Burgess with the. There was a company called Procter and Gardner.
Yeah.
Advertisement company.
Right, agency.
And I did a few arrangements for them for craft products and jewel food stores. And Burgess was on those sessions with some of the stuff that I arranged for them. He did a couple of sessions there. And And then there was the Jazz Institute. I came in contact with Burgess some years ago, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, when we did a concert presented by the Jazz Institute of Chicago. Ken Chaney had put a band together called Jazz Brass, Chicago Brass.
Mm-hmm.
So that gave me an opportunity to showcase one of my tunes, a tune that I wrote, and I dedicated to Harold Washington the week that he died. I wrote a tune called Harold the Great. And what happened was we ended up doing that on one of the concerts that Ken Chaney had produced because it had a lot of brass to it. You know, I mean, it was basically trumpets and trombones, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And Burgess was on that particular gig too. You know,
Yeah.
Ken Chaney put together.
Right, I asked you about him because he was at the high school I graduated from, he also had a band that I was a singer in the band in high school.
Who was that? Who was that?
Burgess, yeah, in high school.
Yes.
Right. That's why I asked. And
Right.
And
I didn't have a lot of contact with Burgess, but I had total respect for him because he was definitely a qualified and educated man. You know?
Yeah, he's a Jackson State Tiger. Yeah, love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about this here particular session, a song anyway. I noticed on the Leroy Hudson song, All Because of You, on Curtin Records.
Yeah.
You know, I see there was about 15 to 20 folks working on that song in that session.
Yes.
I mean, what are your thoughts on music, especially among American black artists today, that there are just fewer and fewer live studio sessions, musicians, or what? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, what it is the technology has allowed maybe 2 or 3 musicians to be able to get the sounds of a complete band. Yeah, I mean, it's all digitally and electronically produced, you know, so therefore you don't have the individuality of the sound of each instrument, you know, or the true sound. My personal preference is people that play instruments. The instrument, if you got I don't like emulated keyboard strings.
Yeah.
If you're going to have strings, I like to hear real violins and cellos. If you're going to have horns, I want to hear real horns.
Right.
I don't want to hear imitated horns.
Right.
You know, and I think the difference in the sound in most cases, you know. But to me, it's a way of saving money, and it's a shortcut, you know, to getting to where you really want to go. I mean, it's a money saver, without a doubt, you know. But I do have an affinity for true live music and instruments that are actual instruments, as opposed to an imitation of an instrument.
And I think anyone who has heard a real trumpet or a real trombone or a real violins, I think they would have appreciation for that. You know, there's a difference, Bill.
Most definitely. You know, what is selling now are moods and grooves and sounds. People don't think a lot about what is making that sound or where that groove came from. I mean, because when I think about my first involvement in hearing live music was when I was down at the Regal Theater back in the 50s.
Right.
When I was able to go to the theater by myself and see a live show.
Right.
And hear the Count Basie Orchestra down there, or hear Miles Davis, or some of them cats that were really firing the real music. I mean, there was nothing like hearing that sound of that complete band, as opposed to a keyboard that's emulating sound. You know, all that's well and good. I mean, you can take an organ and get a big sound, but nothing breathes like horns. You know, nothing breathes life into the music like horns do. Nothing can penetrate the air like violins do. If you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, real instruments. I agree, Bill.
Yes,
I'm a
sir.
very, on my show on Classic Blues and R&B, I've gotten to the point, and I'd still play some, but for the most part, if it's not real musicians there, I really just take it and listen to it and put it to the side.
I know exactly what you mean, man.
Right, because I'm all for live musicians. I want you in the studio. You can always get a guy who may know several instruments. Take those guys, and those guys need to make a living too. Not only that, it's the human elements that you're putting there. Let that guy go in there and do that 3 or 4 different instruments. He got it there. He can do it, like you said, not with the synthesizer.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't have anything against anybody that's going in trying to, produce something in that manner, but I do have the utmost respect and regard for true live instruments.
I agree.
There's a thing that I'm very proud of that I arranged and recorded with Otis Clay, and I arranged the strings on it, and I arranged the horns on it, and it came out very well. There's a thing called "The Only Way Is Up," which is a tune that I did with Otis Clay. That was back around '83, and I had a big orchestra kind of sound with that record, but it was in the disco era, and it had a full sound to it, and I'm proud of it. You get a chance, I don't know if you ever heard it, but I'm proud of it. It came out real well, among other things that I've done.
Yeah. Bill, I want to thank you for joining us here. You want to wrap up? Is anything? You got any dates coming up or anything? They may be gone by the time they're air, but you got some, where you're performing at or coming up or what?
Yeah, actually, man, I just finished a couple of weeks of some a whole lot of activity. I was at the Black Music Awards award show down there at the Congress Hotel on the 2nd of April. I played at the Promontory with Bernard Crump, who has an organization called Musicians Mecca. He does a thing every Monday at the Promontory. The first Monday of every month at the Promontory over in Hyde Park. I'll be there again with him this coming the first Monday in May. And with the Chicago Horns, we did a thing with him the first Monday in April. I also work with a Japanese blues artist named Yoko Noge. And I also am connected with Margaret Murphy, who is the coordinator and one of the founders of the Southside Jazz Coalition. We were at the church over there on 71st and Calumet. Was the name August? Anyway, I can't think of the name of it.
Yeah, I got
but she does a series of shows and concerts over there. And I was working at Reggie's over there on the 17th of April at Reggie's on 21st and State, which is right down the street from Dearborn Homes where I grew up. It's completely different now, I was at the Quarry Friday over on 75th and 24, 23 East 75th, and I will be at the Quarry on May 6th with the Chicago Horns on over 24, 23 East 75th Street. That's May 6th at the Quarry. So that's what I got coming up. I got a few other things that I haven't quite nailed down yet, but it's been quite busy for me here lately,
Well, that's
Since
good.
the pandemic,
Yeah.
I never stopped working, but I had pick and choose what I've done, especially a lot of outside things, Whatever's available here has been very, very, I've been very picky and choosy about things because of the way the society is treating this pandemic. And anyway, it's, business and the economy and all that kind of stuff. So I got to make sure that I'm making the right moves.
Are you doing any traveling at all? But are you traveling in and out of the state, or are you just strictly local?
Well, I will travel.
Oh, okay.
If it's right,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not particularly interested in traveling if unless I'm doing something that is really worth my while.
I got you.
And I'd have to sit down and discuss what the positives and the negatives are if I do decide to travel, especially the way things are today with people fighting on airlines and all that kind of crazy stuff. I definitely don't want to get mixed up in that insanity.
Yeah, get you a bus like we used to do it.
Yeah, right. Exactly, man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm working on some new material. I want to put out another album. I got 3 out now, so I still need to put in. You can never record enough.
Yeah. What's the name of your album so people can, just in case somebody interested?
Okay. The first one is called Chicago Horns. Fire Horns is the name of the first one, and the second one is Live and Alive. Bill McFarland and the Chicago Horns, all under the name Bill McFarland and the Chicago Horns. And the third one is Live at Andy's Jazz Club here in Chicago. So they're available at SoulfulMusic.net at Comcast. SoulfulMusic Music on Comcast.
How you
If
spell
you go
that?
there and look for Bill McFarland and Chicago Horns,
Oh, okay.
you can download it.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard they want to bring you back out to Des Moines out there, Des Moines.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Welcome home, Bill. It's the name.
Yeah, right. Believe me, I'm gonna blow the walls down. If our kids, I did play there years ago with Sun Seals.
Oh, okay.
A place called Soul's Your Mama.
Oh, okay.
It was a white blues club.
Oh, yeah.
Soul's Your Mama. What a hell of a name for a blues club. Anyway, we tore it up, man. Yeah.
All right, Bill, I want to thank you very much for being here on our program.
Thank you, too, for having me, man. Kenny Cooper, I worked with him Friday night at the Quarry. We did a thing, a tribute to Louis Armstrong's 100th year celebration of him hitting Chicago, migrating to Chicago.
Okay, yeah.
And we did we played all Louis' music, man. And it was a great crowd. It was a great night. It was my birthday, so I had a great time. We had some great music, too.
Yeah, happy birthday to you. And
Thank you, man.
And you know what, Bill? You and I have been in the same spot. And I didn't know you. You didn't know me. I worked at Ford Motor Company, too.
I'll be doggone, man. I'll be doggone.
I was on the assembly line. I was a utility man when I left there in 1973. I left.
Okay, when I was there from 65 to 68, I think it was.
Okay.
68, yeah. I was on the assembly line also, but I was putting headliners in.
Okay.
I was on the trim line.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that killed me, man. I had my arms up in the air, working on the headliners on the inside upholstery on the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And working on my knees.
Yeah.
My knees up. All my weight is on my knees and my arms up in the air.
Yeah.
All day long.
The guys.
And what killed me was the mandatory overtime. Remember that?
Oh yeah, well 10 hours a day. That's right. Yes, I worked the night shift. I had to be there at 5 o'clock, and we got off whatever time. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, that's right, man. It was a killer, boy.
I remember I was on the main assembly line just as it getting ready to come off.
Yeah.
So, but first I was on the merry-go-round. I don't know if you're familiar with the merry-go-round. They would have put the front end on and all that stuff, and we sitting over that on that house.
No, I was on the assembly line. Yeah.
But anyway, the guys, they used to get on me, man. Because, hell, I wasn't thinking. I get to singing. And I was just putting my little thing in there, boom, boom, and flipping that dog. They would, hey, man, slow that thing down, boy. I didn't know I was controlling the line. All I know is boom, boom, flipping and sending it over, But yeah.
Man, you learn a lot about life.
Oh yeah.
Hanging out there for a motor company.
Oh yeah, I was there, but I tell you, I was there when we went on strike. When you mentioned, I said, yeah, I was there. Like I said, we was in the same place, same time. I just didn't know you, or you didn't know me. Probably seen each. You never know. Like I said,
Ain't that a coincidence, man?
Oh yeah.
There's something.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to meet you in person, man.
All right. Well, I thank you very much. We've been talking with Mr. Bill McFarland, arranger, a horn player here on the old trombone. Here on Classic Blues and R&B. Thank you for stopping by. Thanks for joining our podcast here on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to us at Henry CB. Follow us on Twitter at WVON Henry and like our Facebook page at Classic Blues and R&B.